This week on True Crime Travelers.
If you're sitting at a bar sucking a hash pipe in Goa, India, then you've committed to having zero responsibilities that day. But what about your 9 children? What are they doing while you get high? Listeners that are moms, get ready to rage.
Welcome to True Crime Travelers, where we investigate suspicious murders and disappearances around the world, but from a traveler's perspective. We are Alexa and Emilia, award-winning travel experts and the authors behind the Solo Girls Travel Guide book series. We are obsessed with safety and true crime, but I promise we're not here to scare you. We're here to prepare you.
Emmy, how many kids do you want to have?
Oh my God. 2? 3 tops.
Okay, so not 9.
Absolutely not. Oh my God. That's like spending 7 years pregnant, especially if you have them like one after the other. Imagine the hormones.
Oh my God, imagine. Well, some might have looked at Fiona McCowan that way. Fiona was the said mother of 9 from the UK on welfare, and she had 9 kids from 5 baby daddies, none of whom were involved in the kids' day-to-day lives. And this is in the UK, by the way, in England. Fiona saved up her government assistance with a mission of taking all of her 9 children to India for an extended vacation. More like they're going to live there really, really cheap, because India can be really, really cheap. So Fiona, along with her newest boyfriend, or like probably future baby daddy, his name was Rob, by the way, Fiona's boyfriend, Rob. Together, they packed up the kids to go to India. But her oldest child, Halloran, stayed back in Britain because he couldn't get a passport soon enough. So that meant that it was Fiona plus 8 kids plus her boyfriend. So that's 10 people that went to India. In November 2007, the whole crew fly to Goa, India. And if you ever planned a trip to India, someone probably recommended that you visit Goa. It used to be at least, like the gem on India's west coast, and it had everything. Goa started as a hotspot for travelers in the 1960s. It became a haven for hippies. So much so that over the years, the culture in Goa has developed around Western attitudes. It's much more Western than other parts of India. However, it is also developed and evolved around Western partying. Today, Goa is not what it used to be. Goa is a little bit grungier, a little bit dirtier, and not as safe. Just keep that in mind. But you're still going to find beautiful beaches and turquoise water and a nightlife scene and markets with funky jewelry and clothes. And it's really attractive, actually, if you're a young kid, if you're a teenager, let's say. Because of this partying, the local authorities have said that they consider Anjuna Beach, which is Goa is actually split into 2, and Anjuna is one side. Anjuna Beach, they've said it is unsafe and unsuitable at night, especially for families.
Okay.
This is like an official statement. The most common crimes in Goa typically include petty theft, especially in the crowded tourist areas and beaches, bag snatching, pickpocketing. And the other concern is drug-related offenses and drug trafficking. So this town is full of drugs galore. Drugs for dinner, drugs for dessert, drugs for breakfast. You can get drugs anytime. So as I mentioned, Fiona has 9 kids, 8 of which are with her in India. And the kid, though, that we are focusing on in this story is Scarlett Keeling. When the family took this trip to India, Scarlett Keeling was just 15 years old. She has a bit of a rebellious side, but she's like bubbly and she's kind of like too courageous for her own good. And yeah, she's just like this ball of fire, right? But we have to remember that at the end of the day, Scarlett Keeling, she's just a girl. She's still a kid. She loved horses and swimming and singing at the top of her lungs. And as a girl, I was raised by a single mom, and I had to grow up a little bit too fast. And I see that in Scarlett. I think Scarlett was like, my mom is not a great mom, and plus I have other siblings. I think she felt alone, and it's like you either sink or swim, and she decided to swim. both Fiona and Scarlett were smoking weed, boyfriend Rob smoking weed. There was like a harem of children with Fiona, so I don't know what those kids were doing. I have no idea. But I can tell you that eventually, 3 months after the entire family had landed in India and began their life in Goa, Mother Fiona and boyfriend Rob, they were ready to move on from Anjuna. Their destination was a town called Karnataka. Was there temples, an ashram, a sanctuary? No, Fiona just wanted to party more. So Karnataka is a 15-hour train ride from Goa, a 13-hour bus ride, or a 5 to 8 hour drive away on a good day. Okay? It's pretty far.
That's pretty far.
Mm-hmm. So Scarlett, with a life, she has this life in Goa, she didn't want to leave. In fact, there were developments in Scarlett's personal life that would make most mothers a bit nervous, but not Fiona. No. Scarlett met someone, like romantically. Now, Emmy, let's play my favorite game. What is an age-appropriate boyfriend for a 15-year-old?
17.
Correct answer. But Scarlett met Julio. This guy is 25 years old. That makes him 10 years older than Scarlett.
Creep alert.
Creep alert. So this guy is 25 years old. His name is Julio or Julio. I've heard a lot of people say Julio.
Is it spelled with a J or a G?
Julio.
Julio.
It's Julio.
Julio. Interesting. An Indian man called Julio.
See, well, I think it probably is Julio, but I can't. So get this. Scarlett, she kind of runs around Goa and she's like, you guys, I don't want to leave. Julio is like, you can stay with me. He's like, you just stay with me. So he's like, hey, Mother Fiona, I am willing to be a great citizen and take care of your 15-year-old daughter. No strings attached. She can live with me. Mother Fiona is like, oh, great idea. That sounds fantastic. No alarm bells are going off in my head. Fantastic.
No red flags are waving.
No red flags are waving here. In fact, you know what I think? I think that Mother Fiona was like, oh my God, someone's going to feed my kid. That's like, I can get, that like has increased her budget for joints every week. She's like, I can buy more weed because Scarlett, I don't have to pay for her, And Scarlett also had the opportunity to work with Julio because he's a tour guide. I think that Scarlett probably, by working with him, I think it's like in exchange for food and for a place to stay, like not really money, but still, I love that for her, but you should never be working as a tour guide in another country because that is a job that a local can do. So we don't take jobs from locals. But I get it, right? It's just fun for her.
Besides, did her visa allow her to work?
No. So the whole family, minus Scarlett, they made their move to Karnataka for a change of scenery. So her one daughter now is in Goa, and she's in Karnataka. Scarlett, though, she actually did go and visit her mom and her family. But then on February 14th, when Scarlett was with her family in this other town, she said that she wanted to return to Anjuna, to Goa, to attend a Valentine's Day dance at a party on the beach at a bar called Curly's. That's when Fiona made mistake number 2. She let Scarlett return. She let Scarlett return to Goa by herself. Little did Mother Fiona know that when she let her 15-year-old daughter Scarlett go back to Goa to live with her boyfriend Julio, that she would never see her daughter, Scarlett Keeling, alive again. Here at True Crime Travelers, safety is sexy. And the sexiest little gadget that I carry with me is called my Birdie. It's a pocket-sized personal safety alarm that you can put in your purse or clip to your keychain, and you won't believe what this thing does. First, it's a 2-piece gadget that when yanked apart sounds a screeching alarm to scare off attackers, intruders, and dogs while drawing attention to people around you. This is a surefire way to slow down or stop an attacker altogether. But wait,
This little gadget that is loved by over 3 million women just got an upgrade. Introducing Birdie Plus, which pairs with an app and offers you bonus safety features like sharing your live location with trusted friends. Never travel without it. Get yours at shesbirdie.com and use code TrueCrime15 for 15% off.
As you remember, where we left off, Mother Fiona and boyfriend Rob are living in Karnataka 15 hours away, and they are with now 7 children. 7 children are with them. 1 child, Halloran, is back in the UK, and Scarlett Keeling is in Goa. That is when Fiona gets a phone call. A mother's worst nightmare. Her child has been hit by a car and is in the hospital. But it's not Scarlett.
Oh,
It's Halloran.
the one that stayed behind in the UK?
Yeah, the one who couldn't get his
no.
passport.
This was a plot twist that I did not see coming.
And the whole family, they need to return to England to be by his side. So on February 17th, Mother Fiona calls Scarlett in Goa and breaks the news. She says, "Hey babe, Halloran has been hit. We need to go home, like, now." So devastated to leave her friends, Scarlett decides to have one last final night out. But this would be her last final night out ever. On the night of February 17th, 2007, Scarlett went out partying. In Goa, the party doesn't end till like 3 a.m. And even then, you're going to see drunk people like going out to eat and stumbling home at like 6 a.m., not having slept from the night before. It is not rare to see that. And remember, you can get ecstasy and weed and mushrooms and never-ending alcohol. And so this was going to be a night to remember, or probably they couldn't remember it because it was going to be a crazy night. And on that night, Scarlett, she didn't go alone out to party and say goodbye. She got her friend Ruby to come with her. Ruby is 16 years old, and in my mind, I imagine that Ruby is probably an expat child too, or like a traveler child too. I don't know. If anyone knows, let me know. Send me a photo at truecrimetravelers.com. You guys, if you have tips, you can always just like straight email us at truecrimetravelers.com. So on that night, Scarlett went out to party, but without Julio. Weird, right?
That's weird.
It's her last night.
Very weird.
Mm-hmm. And he's a tour guide. It's not like he's giving tours at night.
Well, you never know. Maybe he was doing a bar hopping tour.
Well, then he should be bar hopping with Scarlett. At least then she would have had her babysitter with her.
Who knows? Anyway.
Julio knows. So Ruby wasn't actually planning to go out that night, but Scarlett talked her into her because, Scarlett, I feel like she's good at talking to people into things. She's like this, let's do it. Let's have fun. Let's go. Optimism. YOLO, And while the 2 girls are out, Scarlett tells Ruby a secret that I actually didn't think was a secret. But Scarlett tells Ruby that she's like, hey, me and Julio are sleeping together. Like, we're romantic.
I wouldn't have thought that was a secret either.
Yeah. Men don't give you things for free unless they're getting something. I mean, nothing's free. So the girls head out to a bar called 9 Bar. And on the way, they did the very typical 15-year-old girl thing. They stopped at a mini mart and they got some Bacardi breezers.
Oh my God.
I know. And then they kept moving. So they're pre-drinking, right? So they're like a little tipsy by the time they wind up at this beach bar where they drank 2 to 3 more Bacardi breezers, a couple of beers, and tequila shots. These are tiny girls. So imagine this. Let's paint the picture. It's a beach bar in India at night, a lot of Westerners, and 2 young, pretty, tipsy girls wander in by themselves. And now, if any creepy men had been watching the girls, they're witnessing that the girls are getting drunker and drunker and drunker. And that means that these girls are becoming a weaker and weaker target. Creeps want easy targets, and these girls are drunk and they're becoming easy targets. Luckily, though, the girls get out of this particular bar without any incident. Together, they take a taxi back to Ruby's.
But Scarlett was there for just a few minutes. They said their goodbyes, their tearful goodbyes, and they promised to keep in touch when Scarlett returned to England. Ruby shut the door and went to bed around 1 a.m. The next day, on February 18th, Scarlett Keeling's lifeless body was discovered on Anjuna Beach. Scarlett was found half naked, cold to the touch. The local police did a quick investigation, along with the local coroner, and the autopsy came back, and it showed 0 signs of sexual assault. They said she just drowned.
Come on.
The police, the authorities, they wanted to play it off like, oh, she just went for a swim while drunk and she drowned. And this is when Fiona does the most motherly thing that we've seen from her. She decides that she's going to fight for the justice of her child. She insists on a second autopsy. She goes to the coroner to view Scarlett's body. And despite the original autopsy saying there were no marks on her, Fiona, standing over the dead body of her daughter, found her covered in marks, bruises, cuts, signs of sexual assault, all pointing to a brutal attack. After getting this evidence, this assault evidence clearly, Fiona demanded that the case be reopened. So Fiona went back to the scene of the crime. And guess what she found? Scarlett's panties.
Come on!
Scarlett's panties, her shorts, and her sandals, just nearby in the bushes on the beach. This tells us these police didn't give a shit.
They didn't even look.
And how devastating for a mother to find her daughter's panties. Just the picture that paints is clearly Scarlett was sexually assaulted here. We can rule out drowning. She was sexually assaulted on this beach.
It's so evident.
It is so evident. On March 2nd, the second autopsy returns. Toxicology reports revealed that Scarlett had been given or had taken a cocktail of drugs which included ecstasy, cocaine, and LSD. And they concluded that Scarlett had been sexually assaulted before being left to drown in the shallow waters. So they found water in her lungs, which meant that she was still breathing. But this insane cocktail of drugs had her completely incapacitated. But that's not all. This little girl had 50 cuts and bruises, despite the first autopsy writing that there were 0 signs of assault. 50.
How dare they?
This isn't a mistake. This is unofficial protocol. Now, because of the efforts of Fiona, this case was moved from a drowning to a homicide. Investigators began trying to put together a timeline by talking to witnesses, and they got a lot of information. It was reported that on the night of her death, Scarlett was seen with several local men throughout the night, raising suspicions about their intentions. But the strongest witness was a man named Mike from London. And here's what he said he saw. He was having a drink at a bar called Louis' Beach Shack, a place where you can buy weed and coke and LSD, when he saw a very tipsy Scarlett fall over at the beach bar at 3 a.m.
So she continued partying after Ruby went to bed.
Okay, right. So she left Ruby and then she went right back to the bars. So according to Mike, this is what happened. The owner of the bar, Louis, came out and he helped Scarlett inside the bar. He noted that Scarlett was mumbling her words and not making sense. And men could see that. And men started approaching her. It was like an injured deer or something. And lions see that or vultures see that she's injured. And so they kind of come at her. And like I mentioned before, it's a different culture in India. It's going to be these foreign women that go partying in Goa. They're seen as more sexually free than Indian women. Indian women are not going to be found at these bars partying. And I'm going to say something really raunchy and disgusting, but it is 100% my belief from speaking with men in different cultures around the world. If you've never seen a foreign woman before, besides in porn, then when you see her in real life, you're going to associate her with porn and with sex. And the reality is that in parts of the world where there's not a lot of foreigners, men see foreigners in porn.
I had never thought of it that way, but that makes so much sense.
Right. And Louis, he's British. He tells them, stay away from her. She's clearly too young. But as we mentioned, age isn't a big issue in India. You tell a man that you're under 18 in the US and they would not want to go to prison for that.
There were probably also Western men there who were, there for that kind of thing.
It sounds like that it was just the Indian men.
Oh, okay.
Right. Because like Mike and Louis, they're from the UK. They're like, this is a child. This is a little girl. We're going to take care of her. And culturally, the Indian men are at these Western bars for Western girls.
Okay.
If these Indian men wanted cheap alcohol, they wouldn't be at the Western bars. And if they wanted nice Indian women, they wouldn't be at the Western bars. These Indian men are at the Western bars because they know that they're going to get girls by giving them drugs and alcohol. And that is exactly what happened. So eventually, Mike sees Scarlett head to the back kind of like dining area of the restaurant where she sits with two Indian men, much older than her. These two men start giving the visibly drunk Scarlett cocaine, which who knows like what that cocaine is laced with. And after spending about an hour with these two men, Scarlett approaches Mike around 4 a.m. They chit-chat about England, and then Scarlett goes on to share that night she had consumed 3 drops of LSD, 2 tablets of ecstasy, and cocaine, along with her cocktail of booze. But Mike was like, hey, I'm not her dad. I don't want to be creepy and, do all this stuff. I don't have a right to tell her to go home. But maybe he wishes he did. Because a while later, Mike sees Scarlett leave the bar with an Indian man older than her. But he didn't chase after her. Rather, Mike left the bar shortly after that. And that's when he sees the man that Scarlett originally left with riding away on his scooter. No Scarlett. Then, Mike notices, in the corner of his eye, something on the ground. And he turns, and he notices Scarlett lying on the ground with another Indian man on top of her.
Ew.
Man, not young guy, man. He's on top of her. They're on the ground. At first, Mike shouted at them, like, hey, what are you doing? But he didn't intervene because, according to Mike, Scarlett wasn't fighting back or anything. According to Mike, it looked consensual to him.
How consensual can a relationship with a child be? Plus, with that amount of drugs and alcohol be?
Nothing consensual here. But Mike left. And once again, this was another adult letting Scarlett down. Then, on March 8th, one day after the autopsy, 2 men were arrested in connection to Scarlett's death. 28-year-old Samson D'Souza, who worked as a bartender at Louis' Beach Shack.
Okay.
And then 39-year-old Placido Carvalho. And they're both Indian. The 2 men were charged with culpable homicide not amounting to murder, drugging, sexual assault, sexual abuse of a child, and destruction of evidence. Those 2 would sit in prison for the next 2 years awaiting trial. So Samson and Placido were identified as the 2 men seen with Scarlett before her body was found hours later. The 2 men, though, they denied the charges. And there were further delays in the investigation because the prosecutor quit. And so now the trial was moved back to 2013. Of all of those witnesses that Fiona had worked so hard to gather, by this time, 5 years later, only 32 of them were around.
32 is still a good number, though.
32 is still a really good number, but the key witness was Mike, the man who could clearly put these 2 guys at the scene. However, Mike didn't return to testify.
Oh, no, Mike.
And this is because, 1, Mike knew Samson. I think that he didn't want to testify against him. And 2, Mike was getting death threats.
No.
He was getting death threats. And so, of course, he wouldn't want to return to that area where he's getting death threats. As we see, like, police aren't that much of a help. And then there are more delays. The delays just keep on coming. This case is not tried until March 23rd, 2016, 8 years after Scarlett's death.
8 years. 8 fucking years.
And then after all of this, the Children's Court acquitted the two men on all charges due to lack of evidence, even the drug charges.
They destroyed the evidence. Wasn't one of them charged with destruction of evidence?
Yeah, they were charged with destruction of evidence. How? Oh, wait. So it's like, oh, you're charged with destruction of evidence. Oh, there's no evidence. You're off the hook.
How does that work?
What? How does that
work?
How
do you get evidence for destruction of evidence?
I know. How do you get evidence for destruction of evidence? So let me tell you that during the trial, Scarlett's diary was brought in as evidence, and it shows that she was deeply upset by being left in India. She wrote, "I'm stuck. I want to go home." She drew a picture of a hangman, and the defense argued that she'd killed herself that night.
I was going to ask if at some point they had ruled it a suicide. Like she tried to drown herself.
She was set to go home soon. Just because she's sad. When you're sad at 15, you go home. You don't just immediately be like, well, I'm bummed. I'm just going to kill myself.
Doesn't make sense.
So let's do it. Let's play detective. Let's kind of like go back and forth and see what we think happened.
Do you ever dream of packing up everything and moving to the other side of the world? Well, I can show you how to turn that dream into a reality. Hi, I'm Alexa West. After college, I left the country with just $200 in my pocket, and I turned that into over 10 years of living abroad full-time. Now I'm sharing how I did it in my new book, The One-Way Ticket Plan: Find and Fund Your Purpose While Traveling the World. This isn't just another travel guide, and it's not a memoir. It's real-world advice on how to make money abroad and how travel can actually lower your cost of living. No matter your age, budget, or travel experience, I'm here to help you start your own adventure. I'm living proof that your dream life can be your real life, and you don't have to be rich to do it. Inside the One-Way Ticket Plan, you'll discover guidance on traveling safely and confidently, tips for navigating foreign cultures, including those tricky toilets, the ones you have to squat over, strategies for coping with loneliness and making meaningful connections, how to avoid tourist traps, and how to find the most authentic experiences, and of course, practical ways to fund your travels without breaking the bank. Whether you're an inexperienced explorer or a seasoned traveler, this book provides the tools and inspiration to become an expert adventurer before you even leave the couch. Get your copy of the One-Way Ticket Plan on Amazon, Audible, or wherever you get your books, and kickstart your adventure now.
In Fiona's corner, in this whole legal thing, this is what the witnesses, the experts, the lawyers, this is what they say happened that night. They say that Samson and Placido forced drugs onto Scarlett even though they knew she was drunk, and that they did this with the intention of sexually assaulting her. They also say that Samson deliberately left Scarlett near the waterline of the beach, knowing that she would likely die there, and thus cover up the sexual assault and drugging. Then there was another witness that came forward in all of this, named Merle Sager. I think I'm saying that right. And Merle was a waiter, and Merle said that he saw Scarlett arrive at Louis Bar at 3 a.m. and that Scarlett was wearing a sports bra and a pair of shorts, and she was looking for a ride back to Julio's place. This Merle witness guy, he says that he was approached by Samson, who took charge of Scarlett and told Merle to leave them alone. So Scarlett's like, I need a ride. Merle's like, let me figure it out. And then Samson comes in and is like, leave us. I've got this. And Merle claims that Scarlett was so drunk and high that she could barely even stand on her own. By this point, Samson was holding her up. She was so intoxicated. And Samson says, I'm going to drive her home later. Samson and Scarlett, then apparently, were joined by Placido. What a name. What a name. Where they all went and they sat on the beach. Scarlett was singing and wanted to dance. She wanted music because she's on drugs. At some point, it was time to go home, but Scarlett couldn't find her sandal. Samson commanded Murley to go look for it. He couldn't find it. So eventually he left them and drove his scooter home. So this is Murley's account. This is like, hey, this is what happened. I couldn't find it. They were being kind of jerks. And so I went home. Turns out that it was Murley that Mike actually saw leaving the bar very quickly. Yeah. Samson, like quickly after Murley left, Samson must have pounced on Scarlett.
Mm-hmm. He was probably waiting for the moment.
Samson has a defense, though, as to why he sexually assaulted Scarlett. Samson's lawyer claimed that Scarlett's behavior was not that of, quote unquote, a normal girl in India. Basically saying that she was asking for it. And that, yes, Samson was with her, but it was all just a horrible accident. And Samson had nothing to do with her death.
How is 50 marks on her body an accident?
Yeah, right. Thankfully, on July 19th, 2019, the High Court of Bombay found Samson guilty on all 5 counts. Samson got 10 years, but Placido, on the other hand, Mr. Drugman, Placido was acquitted of all charges.
That's infuriating. And also, 10 years for rape and murder?
Mm-hmm.
It's like no time.
It's no time. You're a freaking predator. It's no time. Now, the story gets even sadder. So now we've lost Scarlett. Now a mother is like so upset.
Mm-hmm.
But then,
Remember how the whole family went back to England because Halloran got in a car accident?
Yeah.
Well, Halloran, her big brother, this is Scarlett's big brother, he was so riddled with guilt over the sequence of events that he killed himself.
No. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I did not see that coming.
he killed himself. But here's what's messed up is that Fiona has kind of like spoken out in the media, and she said
Halloran was so upset
that he would regularly overdose at my house. You're letting your kid do drugs at your house, and you're watching your kid do drugs, and you're watching him overdose, and you're not getting him help. This is the stuff that like confuses me about Fiona. It's like you're willing to fight for some cases, but you're not willing to fight for others. Like, what is this lady's deal? Then Fiona, her nightmare wasn't over. I mean, her self-induced nightmare wasn't over. In 2010, she was charged with benefit fraud for abusing her benefits.
Oh.
You know, she's on welfare. And so the people are paying her. She collected $19,000 in fraudulent income between 2005 to 2008.
So basically, tax-paying citizens paid for her Goa adventure.
Yes. That money, you know, that money's meant to be spent on things like rent and food and transportation, not taking your entire family of 10 to smoke weed in India. So she was ordered to repay it. She was ordered to pay $19,000 in fraudulent income between 2005 and 2008.
But Emmy, guess what? I have some really juicy gossip that I cannot wait to share with you. And this juicy piece of gossip gives us a better understanding of what was going on behind the scenes with Fiona and Rob and how they were living their day-to-day life. And this chisme comes, chisme. Chisme is gossip in Spanish, by the way, you guys. This gossip, this chisme comes from the last person you would ever expect.
And that person
Ruby.
was Fiona's now ex-boyfriend, Rob, the one that went to India with everyone.
He did it.
He didn't do it, but he spoke out against Fiona in an interview.
Tan, tan, tan.
Yes. And he says that Fiona let Scarlett smoke weed.
Oh my God.
And let her smoke weed in front of her younger siblings, just completely normalizing drugs. Rob says that by month 2 of them being in India, that they had used up all of the money on drugs and alcohol. They were surviving on a bowl of rice per day.
I'm speechless.
Yeah, no wonder Scarlett was okay not being there. I bet she was eating better in Goa with Julio.
I have a question, actually.
Go.
What happened to Julio? Did he have anything to do with this? Was he a witness at some point?
Well, I'm so glad you asked, Emmy. There is an article that I found where Julio gave a interview, and it's actually like very telling. It's almost like scathing. There's a lot of information in this interview. I'm just going to pick some pieces out here and there. So after Scarlett died, so this is what Julio says happened that night, that he said Scarlett was going to call him to come pick her up. So that's good. I was wondering, like, how was Julio not involved on her last night? He never got a call from her. He said he drove around, asking at the beach shacks, couldn't find her. And then he heard that there was a body on the beach, and then he heard it was Scarlett's. And then he had to tell Fiona, and that Fiona was just distraught. But we're not going to get hung up on that because we've got a plot twist to dive into. A massive plot twist in this entire case that is going to make a lot more sense as to why Fiona allowed her daughter to stay behind. It was discovered that Julio and Scarlett suddenly had planned a trip to Finland together.
To Finland?
Yes, to Finland.
Why Finland?
Well, after her death, there were diary entries that have been brought to light. And there's one diary entry where she writes, she's talking about another guy that she used to like. And then she writes, but then Julio, and is taking me to Finland. And he's done so much for me and my family. She says, I think that he feels sorry for me because I live in a field, talking about like her humble kind of life in England. And she goes, I want to go home. I don't really get him. He treats me like I'm only with him for his money or sex. And he tries bribing me with parties and stuff. It's so messed up. I mean, if he really loves me, he'd think more about, I don't know, love. Gosh. Another strange thing, Emmy, is that after Scarlett's death, the police discovered that days before the murder, Scarlett had told a friend that she had been sexually attacked by up to 6 men. In an email that she sent days before her death, Scarlett confided to a Spanish friend about attending a rave party where she took a bunch of drugs. And following the party, she went back to Curly's, this beach bar, located just a short distance from where her body was discovered. And in this email, Scarlett says, I got a taxi back to Curly's and slept there. But the boys showed up and showed me some hardcore porn movies on a phone. Then they all took turns trying to rape me.
Who were the boys?
The Curly's boys. It's become like a phrase in this case. The Curly's boys refers to a group of 6 young Indian men who had earned the trust of Scarlett's mother, Fiona.
Oh, come on. Mother of the Year.
This is so gross. So it's these boys that were like, yeah, we'll take care of her. We'll be like her big brothers. And then really, they're all just vultures, just waiting to tear her apart. So the point of all this is that there were a lot of men interested in little blonde Scarlett. Julio was just the guy that landed her. And Scarlett could have any guy she wanted because all of these men were always trying to get with Scarlett, like these Curly's guys or like the guys at the bars. And get this, we have some more information from Fiona's ex-boyfriend, Rob, the guy that was with them during this whole time. Rob thinks that Julio was involved in Scarlett's death. Now, Rob thinks that the man who was charged with raping her did rape her, but he said that, the next day they found Scarlett's body on the beach. Julio, the boyfriend who she lives with, he had scratches all up and down his arms. So that makes Fiona's ex-boyfriend Rob think that Julio might have gotten too jealous and Julio might have killed her. There is no charges ever brought against Julio. This is just 100% Rob, but something to substantiate Rob's feelings of like sketchiness towards Julio is that trip to Finland. Now, true crime travelers, get on your tinfoil hats because we're going to go down a conspiracy rabbit hole for just a second because Rob has a theory of what this trip to Finland was about. Now, we're going to take it with a grain of salt because this is Fiona's ex-boyfriend, who does not have a very nice opinion of her. But at the same time, this is the guy that was there for everything. He was there. He saw everything. And what he has to say about this trip to Finland really makes me pause. Because to me, it sounds pretty believable. Now, you guys, I have an article in front of me where Rob was interviewed, and I'm going to put this article on the True Crime Travelers blog. And this is what he says he believes. And quote, "I believe Scarlett was going to Finland as a drug mule. White Europeans rarely get stopped by the Indians for drug searches." You guys, was Julio using Scarlett as a drug mule? And if so, was Fiona in on it? We have to stop and ask ourselves, did Fiona let Scarlett stay in Goa with Julio because Fiona had a business relationship with Julio? A business that involved taking her daughter to Finland as a drug mule? And is that why Fiona was more than happy to let Scarlett stay behind, because she knew she was going to get some money out of it? The more I hear about Julio's jealousies, the more I think that this could be possible. Because if Scarlett was now a drug mule, not only is she the girl that he's sleeping with, she is a ticket to a lot of cash. She's a ticket to a payday. So let me tell you the next creepy thing he did to make sure that his payday didn't get away. And you guys, before I say this, remember, this is speculation. Anyways, remember when Scarlett, she went and visited the family when they moved into Karnataka. They moved down further away from where they were in Goa. We're supposed to believe that Scarlett asked if she could go back to Goa. She asked if she could go back to Goa, but according to Fiona's ex-boyfriend, Rob, that's not the case. According to Rob, Julio came to get Scarlett, and he lied to Scarlett, and he said to Scarlett, "Scarlett, someone that you know has died, basically. There's a funeral. You have to come back with me." He manipulated her into going back to Goa. And obviously there was no funeral. So yeah, Julio, he's a sketchy guy. He's a jealous man, okay? He's man, emphasis on man. Remember that he's like in his 20s and Scarlett is a teenager. So yeah, he's creepy, but I don't know if that means that he did it. The courts say someone else did it. So what do you guys think? I want to know, True Crime Travelers, what do you think? Emmy and I, we don't have all the answers, but we want all the answers. We want to know your opinions, your thoughts. Maybe there's some information that you have that we don't have. So please visit truecrimetravelers.com and visit this episode's blog. Every episode that we do on this podcast has a blog. You can go, you can see photos of the case, and you can get in the comments and you can leave your thoughts. Help us figure this out. We don't have all the answers, but we want them. Me and Emilia love when you guys get involved.
By the way, I saw a Reddit post. I love Reddit. And it was a nice post. It wasn't like in mean spirit, but it made me think of this case. And the question was like, Indian men of Reddit, why are you guys so sexually aggressive? And you had these like Indian men were happy to kind of explain. And one guy, his response that I really liked was, and by the way, none of the Indian men denied this. This just is the way it is. But I really liked how one man explained, and he said, like, we are repressed. You know, we're not allowed to have girlfriends. We're not allowed to like look at X-rated material. Like, we're not allowed to do all of these things. And so then when you put something sexy in front of us, we want to go for it.
Yeah.
And so when
I was thinking the same, like they grew up pretty repressed. I think it feels very old school. Like not even hugging is like looked well upon. So
however, Indian men hold hands with their best friends while they walk around in a market. But it's funny that they can be affectionate with each other. But if you're affectionate with a woman, it's from 0 to 100, you know, like you're going for it.
Yeah.
Yep. And I just wish that Mother Fiona paid attention to this fact. According to the police, these young men could be suspects in her murder, but they've never been arrested, never really been questioned. And to be honest, I think the
simplest answer is usually the answer. And I don't think that there's any reason that it wasn't Samson and Placido.
Agree. I think just that moment where he is, I've got it. I will drive her home later. That's it. That's all you need.
That's all you need. But the most disgusting thing that's come out, Fiona has come out and she has said, Scarlett's death, quote, "It's not my fault. I did not murder her."
Oh, she did. It was maybe like a butterfly effect kind of thing, but she was the one who put everything in motion by taking her 15-year-old daughter to India. It's just bad parenting after bad parenting after bad parenting.
Right. And, I really believe in gap years. I really want to encourage kids to travel after high school, before college, or after college, or during college. But there is a very big difference between an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old. Huge. So the travel lesson of the day, I think, is really easy. I mean, don't leave your 15-year-old daughter in India alone, right? But that one's too obvious. So I have another travel lesson of the day. Cancel me if you want to. I do not want to censor myself when it comes to telling the truth about safety. The truth is, India is a very different game. Being too friendly in India as a woman is a risk. We need to realize that men in different cultures have different value systems.
Yeah, there are very different dynamics with women.
Men don't look at women the same everywhere in the world, right?
Mm-mm.
And a smile for some people is an absolute sign. They might take it as a sign that you're interested.
Yeah. And I do want to add an extra travel lesson here. If you have a friend who's super drunk, don't let her out alone. Just make sure she gets home safely.
That's our job as travelers, take care of each other.
Yeah. I keep thinking back to the Ruby moment, that if she had just dude, no, you're super drunk, you're staying here with me kind of thing,
I know. Another point that I want to make is, how us women are hey, just because we wear a short skirt doesn't mean we're asking for it, right? However, in some cultures, that's exactly what it means. There are signs that you're giving out to men everywhere you go, especially in more conservative cultures. A good tip is to dress like the local women as a woman. If the local women are in saris or they're somewhat covered and you're walking around in a bikini, you are giving a message that the local women are not giving. This is a rule I wish we didn't have to adhere to, but this is absolute truth, especially in India. And for those of you who want to stand up for Indians and want to say, not all Indian men are like that, I believe you. That is absolutely the truth. Not all Indian men are like this. But in this podcast, we will make generalizations based off of common cultural norms within the destination we're talking about. We're never trying to degrade a culture, but we do have to be real that the entire world has huge differences when it comes to things like dating, relationships, or just dynamics between genders. And we are always going to keep it real with you guys.
100%. And it doesn't mean that the dynamic they have with women is wrong. It's just in India, at least my understanding is that you won't really find a friendship between men and women as common as you probably will in the US. Even between Mexico and Spain, there is a difference. And we're such similar countries. In Spain, it is very common to have male and female friendships. In Mexico, if you go to the movies with a guy friend, the next day, someone's going to be like, oh, I saw you with this guy. Is he your boyfriend now? I was like, no, he's my friend, So there are huge cultural differences between the relationship between men and women all across the world.
Yeah. I think if we can give one thing on this podcast, it is real lessons, real thoughts. I think it helps that it's you and me and we're best friends and we almost validate each other, but I also trust you and I trust me and I trust our expertise and I am not going to be afraid to say the things that I think are important. And that's one of them. And we care so much about travel and safety. Make sure you go to our website. We have so many safety tips, not only just destination specific, but general. And we really want you to be able to travel the world with less fear and
more smarts.
No. We have a tagline.
We want you to travel the world with less fear and more fun.
Exactly. Okay, so that's it for this case. I'm sure you moms out there are outraged, as we are too.
Rightfully so.
Okay, Emmy, wait.
Wait. Where are we going next week? Because I need to know what to pack.
Ooh, this is a good one. Next week, odívame v Bulgaria. Next week, we're going to go to Bulgaria. And why do I speak Bulgarian? You're going to learn that next week. Okay, well, I got some potato salad to eat from Costco. Gotta go. Bye.
See you next week. And don't forget, safety is sexy.
Safety is sexy.
Bye.
Bye, sexy safety people. This podcast delves into true crime cases, and we want to remind our listeners that all individuals mentioned are presumed innocent until proven guilty. The opinions expressed here are solely those of myself and Emilia. We strive to research thoroughly and provide accurate and up-to-date information, but please be aware that some details may evolve over time. We encourage you to do your own research and verify the information presented. Thanks for listening.
An Indian man called Julio